The last thing we want to do in our sidebar is display some content from an external site. Basically, we're going to be pulling in from an RSS feed some content to fill out this sidebar. So again, this content that exists here now looks how we want it to look, but it's just static content. So I have open our WordPress theme as a project in TextMate, and we're working with the sidebar.php file. This bit of content here is what we're looking at over here. It's just that static content as this H4 tag of industry news, and then just these static dates, static titles, and lorem ipsum text for the excerpts. We're going to be replacing that by dynamically pulling in content for that. So we're going to be using a special built-in WordPress function called fetch feed, which is going to be doing all that magic for us. So we're going to start it right here. Remember how when we were in the functions.php file and we were declaring those menus and we were past proofing it by making sure that that function exists? We're going to do that same thing here by just making sure that that fetch feed function exists before we use it. So if function exists, fetch feed, then do stuff. So everything that we're going to do is going to be within these. We only need one of these because we're going to be looping. So we'll just save one of them as kind of a template. We'll put that within here. Now, we've proven because we're inside this if statement that this function exists. But in order to use it, we're going to need to do an include for the file that kind of enables all this stuff to work. So we'll just use the standard include once function. And this stuff here, abs path and WP Inc. are constants that are declared that WordPress just knows about, and it's going to make sure that we get to the right path despite what's going on in our theme and despite other settings and stuff like that. So this is just the smart way to do it, /feed.php. We need this feed file for this to work at all. You know what? This is actually PHP. So now we're going to call this fetch feed function. So we're going to actually make a variable for it called feed. We're going to set it to fetch feed. The parameter that you pass fetch feed is an RSS feed. So wherever this RSS feed lives, I happen to have one handy here. So that's just at http:/topics.com/rss/business/manufacturing. In my limited searching, that was the fastest one I could find that had anything to do with widgets. So we'll play with that in a minute, but that's basically how you do a fetch feed. Now we have to set some things like the limit is going to be our feed object, get item quantity. We're just going to say we only want to get two things. In our mockup over here, we have two loops, so just don't waste time. Just only get two. And we're going to set up a new variable, items, and it's going to be our feed object. And we're going to say get items from 0 to the limit. Just setting ourselves up here so that we'll be able to loop through these items and output them properly. So first we want to make sure that it worked. So if the items variable doesn't really have anything in it, then we have a problem. We're going to have to echo something out, some kind of problem. So we'll just say problem for now. But if it does exist, which it probably should, we'll say else. So everything's cool in here. If it's cool, we're going to need to loop through these items. So we're going to do a for each loop, just a real standard PHP loop. So for each items as item. It's going to mean that item is one individual kind of RSS entry. And in this for each loop is then finally this content. So we'll get rid of this, put that in that for each loop. We're going to have to make sure this is happy. PHP tags are being closed properly and opened properly and such. I think that should get us right. Okay, so this is the loop. So this loop is going to run twice. We've said we want two items. So there's going to be two objects in this items, and each individual one is item. So now we have what we need to replace the static content with dynamic content. So we're going to try echo. We have access now to this individual items, and that's an object. So we'll use the get date function on it, and we can format the date however we want, like the month, day, year. This is pretty standard. And for the title, we'll echo out the item again. Now, this is PHP. It keeps slipping in and out of PHP here. So PHP tags. Echo the item, the get title. We've already used that one. And the content. One last thing. Get rid of this lorem ipsum, and we'll say get content. So there we go. Closing the for each. And let's see, what is this one? This one closes the if. I think we might have an extra one in here. Hopefully that doesn't cause an error. We will know soon enough. We're going to need to end that for each loop, though. That's what this does, right? Let's save it and see how we're doing over here. Oh, we've caused an error somewhere. I bet we can track it down, though. In fact, we didn't have an extra one here. That was natural. That was closing the if statement up here. So the for each is closed, the if is closed, and the if function exists is closed. So all of our things are being closed here nicely. If we hit save and reload our theme, indeed we're getting content from that external RSS feed over here. One last thing is we were hoping to link those titles out to those places. So let's make an anchor tag out of our titles. Close that anchor tag. And then as the href for this link, we'll echo out one last thing. The permalink. So now those are linked to the articles as they should be. So what's kind of neat there is that we can just plop in basically any RSS feed and display content from those external RSS feeds. And WordPress is real smart in that it caches, so it's not like every single time this page loads, it has to go out and hit this external resource. It's just intelligent about caching that information. In fact, lynda.com has an RSS feed, and we could replace this RSS feed with lynda.com's blog RSS feed and just hit save and reload the page over here. And instead of displaying those manufacturing-related articles, it's going to show actual lynda.com blog articles. It's going to have too much content in here probably. We could write some PHP to truncate that content if we wanted to, but let's just leave our manufacturing feed in there, which displays nice excerpts already. So that's how easy it is to use an external RSS feed, grab content from it, and display it right on your own site using this fetch feed function, which is a built-in WordPress function.